What's up, everybody? Thomas, it looks like we're doing a car cast here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Breaking news. I'm on my lunch break at work right now, but we had to jump on here. This is Blues Central breaking news edition. The Blues have traded for Logan Mailloux. I don't know if I said that right. There's a little bit of French going on there, but obviously Zack Bolduc is the departure who we saw a phenomenal season from this year in the NHL. So a little bit of a head scratching. Obviously, Jordan Kyrou's name was thrown around in the trade market as well, leading up to last night. Now the no trade clause has kicked in. So it looked like Montreal pivoted to a different winger and one that's a little bit younger, a little bit more potential. But Mike, what was your initial reaction to seeing this trade come through the pipeline?
Well, I started heading my way here to prospect camp, and I said, of course, I leave my house. Like the second that I leave my house, of course, the trade goes down. So, I think it's a little bit surprising because I think everybody had in their mind that Bolduc was going to be one of the defensemen here of the future here for us. I'm sorry, one of the forwards here in the future for us. And so the second that you see his name leaving, it's kind of a head scratcher. But when you dive into Mayu's um his accolades, I'm looking back here at him here with Montreal. The last two seasons, he was an all-star. He was an AHL all rookie team here, 23-24. He was in the AHL top prospects team here last year. You're getting a right shot defenseman who is 6'3", 212 pounds, who I think suddenly fits the mold right along with Broberg, Holloway, Jiricek, Stenberg. Like it just fits what this mold here looks like here for this blue squad. Not to mention the fact that he's waiver exempt. So if he doesn't break the team this year, not a big deal. He just goes to Springfield. He keeps working on his game until the Blues come out to elevate him here even more. So the more and more that I look here at this deal, I love it that you can be able to deal here from your area here of strength here within the wing.
I don't know. I kind of disagree. I don't know that Doug Armstrong would go out and trade Zachary Bolduc, who it seems like, especially towards the end of the season, was in your lineup every night, especially with the physicality that he brings. Like for a guy that's 185 pounds, soaking wet, like he plays like he's 220,
Yep.
banging the bodies around while also providing the offensive upside that we saw down the stretch, almost getting 20 goals on the season, which we knew was a goal of his. So for the Blues, I think a lot of people are like, this is the worst trade that Doug Armstrong has ever made in his tenure. Why would we ever do this? Recency bias, all those things, right? But I think there's still some more things to come. I know that the Blues have been linked to Mikael Granlund, which would obviously fill a need at the 2C position. But it also feels like this move kind of opens up the door for Doug Armstrong potentially moving out another D-man. It does feel like there's a lot of defensemen on the Blues roster right now, especially when you take into consideration Kessel, who we didn't even see that much last year. So for
Right.
Mailloux to potentially get minutes in the NHL this year, which I think Doug Armstrong is planning for him to do, you got to move some pieces around. And, maybe a one-for-one this.
May have lost Thomas here. We can be able to take a look here at his connection here in just a quick second. But yeah, it does seem like that it's a little bit more here of a head scratcher here at times here from him, because it is a bit of a gamble on whether or not that Mailloux is one going to be able to make the roster. Second of all, is Mailloux going to end up projecting here into a top position here with this? It just depends. I mean, again, like he's going to roll the dice here on this. Mary Likens, I do not like this deal here at all. Lot of risk. Lot of risk here. You got to be able to roll the dice here with this. The door opens up to be able to have Devo play in the wing, get comfortable here at NHL speed as well. Take Bolduc's spot. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we saw Dvorsky become a little more and more comfortable here at the AHL level here last year. It just depends on how he's going to end up breaking camp. How is he going to end up taking his progression here from the offseason into this year? Can he be able to take a spot here on the wing? I think he's capable of being able to do so. You can be able to have him play here third line minutes and then just be able to transition here slowly but surely here into that third line center spot here as the year progresses along. As we're seeing here a lot, we're getting a lot of these guys getting overpaid here to be able to go sign here with other teams. Granlund may still be in play here with the Blues, and I think that could be an option, because then you can also be able to bring him in here to this third line again, give Dvorsky a chance to be able to just report back here to Springfield, and then just be able to continue along here with his progression here at the AHL level. So it just depends to see exactly where this is going to end up going. Again, it's a gamble here from the Blues. It's absolutely a gamble, but there's not a lot of right shot defensemen here. Again, this guy here is 22 years old. Last season he put up 33 points, 12 goals, 33 points in 63 games. He is a little bit physical here, taking 74 penalty minutes, and so he's going to need to polish up some of his defensive abilities. And of course, I think I'd be remiss to say that that there was a bit of the of the background here that goes along with him. So for those who don't know, Mailloux actually came into his draft class, the same draft class here that Zack Bolduc went into, and he said, "Guys, don't draft me, because of an incident that he had in Sweden here in the time. He was 17 years old, late 2020. Here was this incident where he took a picture of a then 18-year-old girl having consensual relations here with him, shared it here to his Snapchat. Here was some different buddies here of his, and at that point in time, he did face a bit of a criminal injunction, but he was welcomed back here to the NHL here by Gary Bettman. And so I think that you have a bit of like I think you do have a bit of a culture here from him, like, and a bit of a redemption arc coming from Mailloux. And so it just depends on exactly where we could see here from him. But it definitely seems like that we're seeing a bit of a redemption arc here with not just his character, but like with his on ice play here as well. Thomas, it looks like
I mean
that we're seeing back.
I'm trying to hop back in here. The takes were so hot that my phone overheated. But I think talking about the things that happened in Mailloux's past, I think you just have to bank on Doug Armstrong knowing what he's doing, right? And we've seen him have so much success in the first round and even in the later rounds in the draft in terms of assessing players and their skill sets, but not just their skill sets, because we know that Doug Armstrong's 3 columns of success for the NHL draft are best player available, obviously their skill set, and then their character, right? So if we trust Doug Armstrong in his drafting process, we also have to trust his player assessment. So when it comes to Mailloux, obviously he pulled himself out of the draft the year that he was drafted. The Montreal took him anyways, and it looks like they did their groundwork in terms of the character that they saw there. He went through therapy. He did all the right things that you want a guy to do. And Doug Armstrong comes in. He's gonna turn over every stone to make sure that he's getting the character that they want in the St. Louis Blues locker room, which we know is a very high bar to set. And so I understand people looking at the legal cases and looking at the background of this guy, and red flags raised for sure. But I do trust Doug Armstrong in his assessment, not just of a player's ability, but of a player's skill set, to go in and say, hey, I think this guy, obviously second chances are a real thing. And I think if Doug Armstrong believes that his character has changed enough to fit in the St. Louis Blues threshold, I trust him in that regard. But back to what I was saying before I got cut off by the heat miser on this iPhone, I think it just comes down to trusting Doug Armstrong, right? I think on a one-to-one basis, yes, you can say that Montreal Canadiens won this trade. But if this trade opens things up for a guy like Orlov, which maybe it won't, but a guy like Granlund to come in, or a guy like Ehlers even, or like, let's say you move Zack Bolduc from a position of power on the wings, right? And then you fill out the center position. Maybe Dvorsky's ready, and you can play him on that third line wing, and you move Braden Shen down to 3C. All of a sudden, this team looks a little bit better than it did having Bolduc in the fold, because the top 6 is still fine. You've got Jordan Kyrou there, who's obviously the leading scorer, sticking around at least for this foreseeable future, but a no trade clause intact definitely, makes it so that he's going to stay around even longer, because it makes it more difficult to move him out, right? And obviously that guy is, one of the best talents on your team. You've got Robert Thomas. You've got Holloway. You've got Buchnevich, who's poised for for a bounce back season after a disappointing one last year. So when you look at the assessment of this team as a whole, not just the 1-for-1 Bolduc, shock value of trading for Mailloux, I think ultimately Doug Armstrong's goal is to always make this team better. And if you're bringing in a right-handed defenseman that's 6'3", has a little bit of size to him, but also has puck-moving capability, and a lot of people are talking about him potentially being a future power play quarterback, I mean, that's a position of need, like we talked about, just almost as necessary as a 2C. So, like I said, taking a position of power in the wings where you really had 3 guys vying for a position in the top 6, and now you don't. You've got 2 bona fide top 6 wingers in Snuggerud and Kyrou. If you can slot Dvorsky in there as a third-line winger with high potential upside, but he doesn't have that pressure on him, you bring in a 2C and you add Mailloux to the fold. I mean, essentially, Doug Armstrong has a possibility now, which I didn't think was possible before, to fix all the areas of need that he went into this offseason with. And I think that's a beautiful thing to happen, but we got to give him time to do it. Literally, free agency just started today. They make one trade and we're like, Doug Armstrong sucks. Get him out of here. I can't wait for Steen. He's the worst GM in the league. Like, let's give it time. Let's see what this team looks like come training camp, and then we can assess all the moves going in there. What do you think, Mike?
Well, if you remember, I mean, everybody was all up in arms here just a couple of years ago that Doug Armstrong wasn't doing enough, and then all of a sudden, here in the later hours here of free agency day, he brings in Ryan O'Reilly. So, I mean, it's you're talking about 1 hour in. There has to be, in my opinion, some additional moves that are still being made. I think that you're still going to see a Nick Leddy being able to get moved out. Jacob did make the point here, our guy Jacob, that we didn't get the value here for Bolduc of like he was truly worth. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I was hoping that we could maybe get a little bit more here for him if in the event that we would move out Bolduc. But at the same point in time, I think some people may be also underestimating and undervaluing Mailloux, just at how good that he was at the AHL level here last season here as well. The contract that he's on, the waiver exempt, I think that you may be just undervaluing him. But I do think that there's some additional moves here that are still going to be in play here for Doug Armstrong and the Blues.
And let's say, for example, in the next couple of hours, Doug Armstrong finds a way to trade Justin Falk to a team without retaining any of his salary. In the event that we didn't trade Bolduc and didn't have Mailloux, you're thinking next man up is Matthew Kessel, and you're like, God, our team just got worse. We went from Justin Falk to Matthew Kessel. Like, Justin Falk had a bad year, but at least he's a veteran and old and like knows how to play. Matthew Kessel is just a bona fide question mark and a prospect. We really don't know. He could be worse than Justin Falk, but now we have a contingency plan in Mailloux to where if you do end up moving a guy like Justin Falk or even a guy like Nick Leddy, like we've been talking about this entire offseason, right? Like you have a guy like Mailloux to kind of step up into that role and provide the potential for a high ceiling player that hasn't reached his threshold yet. And like I said, if we trust in Doug Armstrong's drafting capabilities, which we absolutely should because he continues to find diamonds in the rough time and time again, regardless of what pick and regardless in what round, I think we should trust him in his assessment of Mailloux, how he can impact this team, what they're going to do moving forward. Because we also saw a lot of contracts flying around today that were pretty high prices, especially when it comes to defensemen. So if you wanted to go out and acquire a right-handed defenseman or even a left-handed defenseman in free agency, it was going to cost you a bag. Like it just was, especially a guy that's going to insert into your top 4. Like it's going to cost you money. With Mailloux, because he's an unknown, because he's young, he still fits that 20 to 25 range that Doug Armstrong just mentioned in his press conference after the draft. He's 22 years old, so he fits the window and what they're looking for. But also you're bringing in a guy that has potential for a high ceiling and has potential to be cost controlled for the foreseeable future. Like the massive upside is there to where you can still feel relieved that there's a lot of question marks revolving around this, obviously, but the hope and the high ceiling, I think, is what Doug Armstrong was looking at and why he made this move. And like you said, Mike, I think there's still more moves to come. If we get Granlund and solidify it down the spine, if we move out Justin Falk, like this move all of a sudden is going to look way better in people's eyes because it allowed other moves to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this year it's also going to be summarized, like this draft class, this free agency class is going to be summarized by a bunch of sticker shock. And how shocked everybody was at, how much of these guys are signing here for. But also, I mean, these players and these agents, I mean, they're commanding a higher price simply due to the fact that the cap is rising. And
Right.
So with a thin free agency class, and the fact, I mean, how often are you going to come across a guy who is going to be a top 4, has the potential, and I will stress potential, to be a top pairing power play quarterback who's going to be able to put up 30, 40 points here in a given season, roughly 10 goals here or a little bit more, that can be able to play here on the right side? There's not that many. This season here alone, I think within that age range here, and be able to just check my facts here for me, but I believe right shot defensemen who put up roughly that many points here on a given season within the age range who play right shot was 4 guys. So I'm sorry, like you're just going to be able to put up a little bit of additional value here for a guy, again, like a Zachary Bolduc, in order to be able to acquire a guy who is 1 of 4, 1 of 5 potentially here within the league itself.
Also, just a very cool moment because I believe Bolduc is from Quebec, Montreal area. So him going home, to like, it's a very comfortable environment for him. So as much as we loved him here in St. Louis and thought he was going to be top 6 winger, like score 30 goals, like power play mutant, all of that stuff. Like I think he still has the potential to do that in Montreal, and even a heightened capability because of that hometown factor. So I will absolutely be rooting him on from afar. He's still indicative of Doug Armstrong's skill set when it comes to the draft and bringing in those prospects. But speaking of prospects, Mike, how are you feeling about prospect camp heading into the day? And will you be keeping an eye on Doug Armstrong and his busy phone in his little window up there later on?
Gotta always really keep an eye here on him. I'm again sitting in the parking lot, getting ready to head in. Here I'm about half hour here behind here now, being able to walk in. But I'm excited here for this. And again, fans, again, if you're interested, be able to just keep an eye here on what the lines are going to look like here for going into next season when it comes to the Blues. Got to be able to make sure that you're heading over to DraftKings, be able to just place your bets here for anything that may or may not be happening with the Blues, anything that may or may not be happening here for betting odds here. Be able to use DraftKings.
I'm trying to remember if I saw his name on there, but I feel like he could be or he could not be just because he already played minutes in the NHL. But is Dvorsky at prospect camp or no?
Dvorsky's not. No. This is a bit of a smaller draft class that's here at prospect camp. You don't have your Snuggerud, you don't have your Dvorsky, you don't have Stenberg. You don't have a lot of guys who are going to end up being here just because they're aging out here of this particular camp. No.
Gotcha. I'm just wondering if Doug Armstrong and co saw something in Dvorsky, whether it be this offseason or whether it be, in his limited time with the team last season, to where they felt comfortable enough to move on from Bolduc, potentially insert Dvorsky as like a third line winger, like we've kind of been talking about, marinate him slowly into the lineup, turn him, develop him into a center and then just work his way up from there. But it'll be interesting to see how Doug Armstrong attacks not only today, but the rest of this offseason moving forward without Bolduc in the fold. But now you've got a right-handed defenseman who's young and, hasn't shown a lot in the league yet, but he's got a world of potential. It'll be cool to see. I think we've got like close to $9 million in cap space currently, if you take into consideration Torrey Krug's long-term
LTIR.
Yeah. So he's definitely got some things to play with now, and it would be.
Yeah, we've got some. We definitely have some cap space that's going to be available here itself. Habs fan here Habs fan here. I think the Blues got a good player here, Mailloux. He is mistake prone, but also has an excellent point shot. He plays big and he's mean. And I think that's exactly what the Blues want to end up seeing here. Jacob here again says, I'm 100% sure Doug has something cooking up here. Tough. This has to be the first move. So, yep, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. One proud papa. I actually like this trade. Young, big right-hand defenseman for a young forward. We need a big offensive D-man here. Have plenty of forwards to be able to fill Bolduc's spot. And actually, and I agree here with that. I think that you're going to end up seeing a guy here like Mailloux come in, who's going to, I think, remind the players here a lot of a guy in Philip Broberg. But let's get a couple more here. -5 in 7 games. He's just a gamble for a player who's just about to start showing his talent. Correct me if I'm wrong, but most of Bolduc's came in the second half. Nope, you're absolutely right. It did come here in the second half, and I think that's why fans here were thinking that that we're going to see a lot here from him. He is poised for a breakout season here next season. Habs fan here, can Bolduc play center? Not really. Not really, no. Junior leagues, he did play a little bit of center, but I think a lot of it was whenever he went on his run here in the QMJHL with the Rem parts. He was seeing a lot more time here on that left side on the top line. That's where you got to see a lot of this. Also, Mailloux is not that good. I'm going to be yeah. So we'll be able to see exactly here because it is going to be a gamble. Horrible defense, bad awareness, has an amazing shot, though, and has good size and skill. Young guy. I mean, he's only 22. Good size. It just, it's going to end up being a gamble here from the Blues in order to get this up and going here. So, okay, I think that's going to be it here for us here today. Again, if you guys will do definitely keep in mind here that we are going to have Cardinals talk here just coming up here just in a few different minutes. But to keep it in mind here just as we move forward. I'll be heading here into prospect camp. Be able to give you guys updates, be able to just pay attention to all the written content and all the video content that's going to be coming up here talking about St. Louis sports. So thank you guys here so much and have a great one.